We are Rogue Media Sports.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
It is the Doomsday Podcast, and it is Sunday evening, and Ed is still in the press box in Foxborough after just a wild Cowboys win. It looked several times like that thing could go either way, and they find a way to win this, and then, of course, superseding all of the crazy game, which we will talk about on the Doomsday Podcast, is this on the final play of the game, Dak was injured. And, Ed, you were right there for all of this. In fact, I pulled off the road and was able to see some good photos that you had. It's been called a calf strain. But, Ed, since you were kind of right there on the scene, in fact, he's got a cast on that. He's wearing, I guess, what we call an air cast on that calf. Ed, how difficult was he trying to get around afterwards? Because the picture I believe you took, it looked like Zeke was having to help him.
Yeah, so we were getting set up for our post-game one-on-one interview right outside the locker room. So we had some unique access to that area, and we were going to interview CeeDee Lamb after his walk-off game-winning 35-yard touchdown catch. And obviously there was a lot of euphoria as the players, were celebrating coming, down off the field, through the runway, down the quarter and into the locker room. And at the very end of the procession, here was at a high rate of speed, Dak Prescott with his right foot raised up and hopping with a lot of his weight leaning on Ezekiel Elliott. And there were some security people going past, and I was wise enough in this modern age to grab my phone and snap a couple pictures, at which point one of the security people turned around and told me that would be a good one for me to delete. And so I found myself a little bit conflicted about whether I should immediately post that on Twitter. I ultimately decided to wait and see how this all played out. And as luck would have it, the Cowboys, after Rich Dalrymple came in, the Cowboys PR director, to the press conference introducing Mike McCarthy, and he said, we don't have the injury report for you at this time, but we'll have it right after Coach speaks. So I thought, here they're trying to conceal this injury that I saw. I didn't see Dak suffer it, but I saw him walk off with it. And so at the very end of it, Rich, as McCarthy left the lectern, Rich was asked if they would be providing an injury report. He listed 3 players, the last of whom was Dak with what they say is a strained calf. So Dak came to his press conference. He was wearing a walking boot. Mm-hmm. He said it happened on the final play. He said he kind of came down awkwardly on it, didn't hear a pop. He doesn't think it's a major injury. Obviously, there's maybe a little extra alarm because it was the right leg that required 2 surgeries after his season-ending dislocated ankle and fractured leg last year. He'll have an MRI tomorrow and be further evaluated. But Dak kind of assured everybody that he's going to be fine. Whether he is or not will be determined by the MRI. And even just a calf strain can, quite honestly, take a few weeks depending on the severity of it. Fortunately, the Cowboys, as you know, have their bye week next week and don't play Minnesota until 2 weeks from tonight. So if it is a minor injury, then it's possible that Dak would be back for the next game. But they go into the bye week having won 5 straight and a very dramatic victory against a coach and in a place where they've known nothing but misery, failure, and defeat.
You're right. It had been, I think it was like the Cowboys had won the first 7 against the Patriots and then had lost like whatever it was, 6 in a row. And then they get the thing done and huge win. And Chris Gross, Mark Friedel-Friedman, now would be the appropriate time to play the music. All right, and Doomsday Podcast coming to you. Ed, this is, we'll be as quick and efficient as we can tonight because people are wanting this, and people are very excited as the Cowboys improve that record and now seem on a roll. And Ed, I know when you're at the game, you can't always kind of hear what the broadcast is saying, but both Nance and Romo at some point said this team, could be a Super Bowl team. And I think Nance said a legit shot at a Super Bowl. Romo said it a couple of times. And so this is and for all the world, Ed, you can remember we've done so many of these games where it's like, wait, the Cowboys had this turnover margin. They can't lose. Well, this was one of those weird games, too, where they had at one point in the first half, it was 34, or maybe it was third quarter, 34 plays that had been run in their territory, and the Patriots had 8. And the Cowboys were not capitalizing on this, and they were down 14-10 at halftime. So we have seen times when the Cowboys found a way to lose games like this, but, Ed, they find a way to win, and I do think that explains why this was such a euphoric and excited locker room situation.
Well, I think that they came into the game having attached a lot of significance to the opportunity that they had. And Dak was asked after the game about, was this a statement win? Did they prove something to people? And he said, I know we're for real. I believe it. We're not trying to prove it anymore. But that being said, because of the fact that they, were 0-3 in Foxborough against Belichick and the Patriots, and the fact that they'd scored only 8.3 points per game in those losses, including the one where they came here 2 years ago when Dak was the starting quarterback, Kellen Moore was the offensive play caller, and they had the number one offense in football, and they left having lost the game without scoring a single touchdown. So I think they looked at this as a really monumental challenge, and it was going to make them be viewed differently and maybe even by themselves. For Dak Prescott to come in here and throw for 445 yards, the most ever against a Bill Belichick defense. How many great games did Peyton Manning have against this team? Obviously, it struck me. It's a little different when you're trying to beat Brady and Belichick, and the Cowboys have tried to beat both of them in the first 6 weeks of the season, but now you get to beat them separately. You don't have to try and beat them on the same day. It's a little different thing. And I think the biggest thing was, for the first time, the Cowboys had the better quarterback. Mac Jones is a rookie and a promising young guy, but he's a rookie. And Dak has a lot of experience, and he has a tremendous number of weapons all around him. And really, they got major contributions from all three phases, right? They did what you saw on offense. Dak had 400 yards passing and 3 touchdown passes. They blocked the punt. They didn't get anything out of it. But they blocked a punt for the first time since 2015. Diggs, Trayvon Diggs did what he always does. Seventh interception, 6 games in a row, his second pick six. I think I don't know that they proved anything really to themselves, but they wanted to win this game, and they cast it as much more than just another one of 17 games that they were going to play this year.
I think that's right. And it, I'm just glad for once the whole game wasn't about Dak's. Well, I guess it ended up being about his injury, but this is a separate injury,
a different injury.
It's always it's 365 days from the time he did this, and we do it. So it is, I would say, a great time to hit the bye. Ed, the funny thing about a game like this, and we've seen it over the years, some maybe like a Monday night Giants game that comes to mind, where what you think is going to be the huge story doesn't end up being the huge story. At one point, it was kind of like, wait, what's McCarthy doing? This man that has the nerve to go for it in his own territory is faced with a 4th and 1 and chooses, let's send Zerline out there and kick the 51-yarder with about, what was it? It was over. It was like 2.5 or 3 minutes left.
They wasted time on the
correct.
Last one, they wasted time. Yeah.
And he misses it. he misses it. Now, immediately you see the Cowboys, they have the 3 timeouts, so they've got a shot, but it seemed like they had given up a great opportunity. So, Ed, we do, though, at least have our McCarthy head-scratching moment of the week, okay? Brought to you by Goodness Steak Seasoning, Ed. We'll hear a little bit more on Goodness Steak Seasoning, but
I thought we had multiple head-scratching decisions by Mike McCarthy.
Give me another one. Yeah.
Well, how about the 4th and 1 on your own 35 on the first series of the game?
Yeah.
I've looked at the analytics and according to ESPN's metrics, it was kind of a 50-50 decision. All things factored in, including early in the game, but you're not factoring in the history that this team has. And to me, I don't see how you justify the risk reward there, given that even if you make it, you still have to go 65 more yards to get a touchdown. They only have to go 35, and that's what happened.
I thought that was almost paying homage to the great Belichick, because Belichick kind of he sort of brought that to the NFL, the going for it in his own territory, and of course
against the Colts.
Yeah, and famously paid for it one time, but more than not, he gets it. That I didn't have as much problem with that one as just this sort of obsessive behavior by McCarthy that he trusts this kicker like crazy, and I don't think the kicker has given him that much reason to trust him. The kicker has had some bad moments. He's had some really good moments this year, but by the way, and part of it I guess is because that wasn't Slater, who's the player for them that came diving in there. He may have messed that kick up, but that 51-yard attempt wasn't even close. I mean, Zerline hooked that thing. People
who watched warm-up said before the kick that he had a miserable pregame warm-up from anything more than 45 yards. And so that came as no surprise that I think in that situation that he hit it badly. And you're right, it did look like there was some pressure coming off the right side, so maybe he got to the ball a little early and pulled it. But, back to kind of the McCarthy, why do you go for it on 4th and 1 on your own 35, but then you're on their 35 at the end of the game and it's 4th and 1 and you don't go for it? Like the whole thing just seems out of whack. I don't know where he's getting his analytical information from. And one day it may cost him his job, but I think today his team was too good to be stopped by even that.
Yes. And then for it to happen on a Trayvon Diggs pick six, I mean, again, this was a wild, even the broadcast was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, there was sort of an over-the-top reaction to all this, which is kind of Romo's deal. But for Diggs to do that, and as only I could, Ed, I immediately, had something along the lines of, this is the best defensive player in the league right now. And it's to me, it's a pretty simple way to arrive at that. And then, of course, 10 seconds later, he's giving up the deep ball. Now, some could say Casey, took a poor angle and could have helped him on that one, but he did get beat on the route. I mean, he absolutely got beat.
Although they both misjudged the ball in the end, and that led to the 75-yard touchdown pass, which Mac Jones didn't have more than a 40-yard pass at any other point in the season. So that, like you said, that seemed a moment where now we're writing a different story. Now it's how the Cowboys defense and Diggs blew the game. They just seemingly won. But the coaches seem to be saying that Diggs had help supposedly from Kazi, and he took a bad angle on the play and went for the ball and didn't get it. And so that led to the Kendrick Bourne touchdown that seemingly was going to win the game for the Patriots.
Yeah, Bourne is, and that led to a Romo. He had to do the whole, he said that the receiver had a new identity. So he was very pleased with himself after that. It is the Doomsday Podcast. I did mention one of our new sponsors, and we're excited about them. It is Goodness Steak Seasoning created in 2008. And Ed, you'll be happy to know I got to figure out what I'm going to give all these folks, because they're sending me the evidence that they have their Goodness Steak Seasoning. I'll hold it up right now for our, which way do I want to go here? There it is. For our kind of YouTube audience. But Jason Velo, who's become a friend of mine, used this just in the house on some small roast and then started kind of putting it on everything. And with the encouragement of his friends, started packaging Texas herbs and spices and sharing it with the world. Ed, chicken, hamburgers, grilled vegetables. Put this on some broccoli recently. That sounds a little weird to you, probably. Blackened some broccoli, and I put some Goodness steak seasoning on that, and it really brought out the taste and helped me consume that vegetable. Just go to bringthetasty.com to order your bottle today, and a jar or two of Goodness steak seasoning would be a great gift. In fact, for Chris Gross, Mark Friedel-Friedman, and you, Ed, for my holiday gift this year, I am thinking about delivering to your houses Goodness steak seasoning. Here, Ed, let me hold up the little, you see that? There's a little bag.
Please bring that. Bring my razors that you owe me from a couple of Christmases ago, too, if you would.
Okay, Harry's is not paying us right now, so we don't need to do anything for them. But
trying to get them back on board.
I have a box. I have a box of that. I really do have that for you and Frito. Frito needs to shave right now as we speak. And Ed, by the way, your beard's looking pretty good. I've got a very up-close shot of it. It is Doomsday Podcast as we roll on. Again, you're right. So many things happened in this game. Dak's performance, let's talk about the good and the bad. Okay, the good is 445 yards. Nobody's ever done it to Belichick, even including the postseason. I mean, people have had some good days against him. I remember Eli going crazy against him, not just in the Super Bowl, but actually in that last game of the regular season, the week 17, and he put up some huge numbers with Plexico and all those guys. And somehow, some way, Dak does it. Now, early in that game, Ed, Dak has the interception where the player, in the end zone and the defensive back brings that thing out to about, I think it was a 26-yard line. And then, of course, at the goal line, Cowboys were intent. Okay, we're going to get this thing in. We're going to keep trying these quarterback sneaks. Well, Ed, apparently, let's talk about that third down one, by the way. It looked like, for all the world, his body's in there. It had to be, because he sort of disappears. But I guess on replay, if you can't see the ball and you have no shot on it and they call it down on the 1 yard line, that's it, man. Sorry. They can't overturn that. What'd you think, Ed, when you saw that third down play and the way that was?
It's kind of the same thing that happened in the Philadelphia game a couple weeks before. Dak tried to sneak it in and appeared to have broken the plane with the ball in his possession, only for the officials to rule that he on the field that he was down prior to doing so, and replay unable to get a clear enough visual evidence to overturn the call on the field, and so it's stuck. It just seems like as creative as Kellen Moore is, they probably need to try something different in that situation, because they've had no positive results from trying quarterback sneaks, and I'm not sure that it's really worth risking a quarterback who's suffered a couple of injuries now in the past 2 seasons to be putting him at risk like that.
Well, and maybe even, they used the Wildcat, pretty much the same formation that the Patriots had used earlier in the game when Mac Jones lined up far right, and then Dak did that. So maybe even the Wildcat would be something they could deploy right down on the goal line. Okay, fourth down. Dak lines up, and there he goes. And every quarterback from the beginning of time, and running backs too, the thought is once you penetrate or come to anywhere on that goal line, it doesn't matter if they knock the ball out of there. It's an automatic touchdown. But, Ed, number 8 for New England comes rolling in. There's a gorgeous play, and more people should try to do this. Maybe they do, but just punches the ball, and that ball comes out of there. So, Ed, I mean, it's an unlucky play, but it's also could be viewed as a careless play. They try that one on the goal line and then turn the ball over down there again. So a lot of things working against them, even though, Ed, the stats showed that they were dominating that ball game.
Right, but they were not efficient in the red zone. They had the block punt. They didn't score any points on that either. Yes. They recovered, I think, at the 18-yard line. And then they twice turned the ball over in the end zone. On the play you're talking about, I think Dak tried to go low and couldn't get enough push. So he tried to just get enough push to kind of leap over the top and extend the ball. And as he was getting ready to extend the ball, the defensive player came in and hit his left wrist and knocked it free, and he started to lose control just about the time he was crossing the goal line. So again, a lot of mistakes in the game, but they talked about coming in and thinking they were going to have to play a really clean game, and they didn't do that at all. And yet they still scored an awful lot of points and eventually prevailed in the game.
They did. And the mistakes that you were mentioning, I watched a college game yesterday, Ed. The 20th ranked Baylor Bears went the entire game without a penalty. It has not happened, they believe, at any time in school history. And then the next day, I watch a game where the Cowboys are it's like a penalty every other play. And Ed, this had the chance. I mean, there's so many players that owe Dak Prescott and others, CeeDee Lamb. I would say Connor Williams should go hug both of those men immediately, because this could have been the Connor Williams game, almost like some of those old Posderic games back against the Giants from years ago. The holding penalties, 3 right there in the fourth quarter. And then Ed, there were and still got a couple of penalties. One was to the face, hands to the face. I think Tyron got some earlier in the game. He had to check out for a little bit, but Connor
Zach Martin even had a penalty.
Correct.
Yeah, Connor Williams was the biggest offender of all.
Yeah. This could have been. We could have been talking about all these horrible penalties. That's something obviously they got to start cleaning up.
Yeah, I think they had a dozen penalties for over 100 yards. The huge disparity in the way penalties were called and assessed, and it was to the Cowboys' detriment. Dak said something interesting about the Connor sequence of Connor Williams penalties toward the end of the game that they were able to overcome, and he said it kind of steals our resolve to make it up for that guy as a group. Okay, we'd rather have 1st and 10, but hey, we can convert 2nd and 25, and they did. I thought CeeDee Lamb had a really spectacular game throughout, making, a variety of clutch catches on 3rd down all over the field and running after catch and after contact. And I thought he had a huge game, and a lot of that allowed them to overcome some of the mistakes up front. Belichick puts a lot of pressure on your offensive line. And so that's what caused a lot of that, I think, was the approach that the Patriots take with their front seven.
But really, the game came down to, it's funny because we've now mentioned 7 different things that the game came down to. But, Ed, like the greatest play of the McNabb era, by the way, was what I remember was like maybe was a 4th and 26, you remember? And I think he ran for first down.
Against Green Bay.
Yeah, in that playoff game. That was 3rd and 25, and they had been knocked back out of field goal range. And my whole thought was like, you just have to maybe get half of that and then maybe go for it again. You can't maybe get the whole chunk. And he did this several times today. You remember the whole Garrett era. Oh, we were behind the sticks. Oh, we were behind the sticks. And they were. It was always 3rd and 20 or 2nd and 20, and they couldn't. One of the great things about Dak right now is even in those bad situations, he'll make a play. And now Wilson and, as you said, CeeDee Lamb and some of those guys were making plays for them. But to get like 24 yards in one of those bad, usually, like you said, if Belichick gets you backed up behind the chains that badly, he's going to cash in. And Dak wouldn't let him do that.
It just speaks to really the level of talent that they've assembled on the offensive side of the ball. And remember, they don't have Michael Gallup. I think Gallup would have made a huge difference over Cedric Wilson. Cedric Wilson made some nice plays. He also was involved in some of the turnovers. And he dropped the ball in the end zone. He was the intended receiver and had his hand on the ball on the one that was deflected early in the game in the end zone. And he muffed a punt. So he was far from perfect. But he made a big catch on the last drive too, on 4th down, 4th and 4. So obviously the return of Michael Gallup, whenever that happens, will make this an even more dangerous team. But the diversity of their weapons, and one of the things McCarthy pointed out was, we talked all week that this guy Belichick he's gonna not only make you play left-handed, which he did. He took away their running game, right? They came in having run for 200 yards in each of the last 2 games, and the Cowboys could not run the football at all. This was like the Tampa Bay game at the end. They had to be forced into it, but they threw almost on every down. And McCarthy made the point that telling Dak, hey, you're gonna have to it's going to be hard to get the ball to Amari. It's going to be hard to get the ball to CeeDee. You're going to have to, you're going to have to trust Cedric Wilson. You're going to have to throw it to Zeke. You have to throw it to Pollard. You have to throw it to Schultz and Jarwin. And he really did all that. I mean, the ball distribution was really incredible. In addition to the overall productivity of the offense.
Did you have a moment as we talk about the defense for a little bit? And we'll get to Gregory because I think we ought to talk about him. And I think you even mentioned perhaps in all your tweets about, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this year. So that's going to be interesting because he's becoming, a really good player. Did you have to look down at your roster? Were you immediately aware of who number 6 was? I saw 6 make a hit, and I was just like, wait, who is 6? But, of course, that's the guy that's been out for a while. Donovan Wilson was back out there. Yeah.
We hadn't seen him since week 1.
The single-digit thing throws me off.
Yeah, it does. You imagine what it does to the quarterbacks.
I do. Yeah, that's what Tom Brady
criticized. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he criticized that league and made an issue with that. But you know what? Yeah, you're right about Randy Gregory. I mean, and here's a stat for you from Next Gen Stats. Randy Gregory has the 2 fastest sacks of week 6 at 2.45 seconds, 2.50 seconds. He now owns the 4 fastest sacks by the Cowboys this season, and he's going into free agency, potentially, not knowing whether the Cowboys are willing to tag him or what that cost will ultimately be, but he is scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent when the season ends. Would he leave the Cowboys organization? And he requires, given his history, a certain support group. And I think he's really comfortable here. And I'm sure he really relies on that. But I would think ultimately the Cowboys are going to have to be competitive in terms of the money, or they're going to risk losing Randy Gregory.
Competitive and creative. They sort of have to cover themselves given his past. But I think that would be really hard on Jerry to lose him, even to somebody paying crazy money, because this is, I think, in Jerry's mind, one of his bigger success stories. And one of his success stories just went out the door recently as a release player in Jalen Smith. So I think it would really hurt Jerry. Okay, Ed, defensively, this team, I'm thinking, the Patriots were able to get them on some of those, I thought Van Der Esch looked slow at times. Sometimes we used to say it about Jalen Smith. For whatever reason in this game, some of those running plays, some of the pass plays, I just thought he either took bad angles or just didn't look great. That jumped out at me a little bit. I think you're going to have to take the good and bad with Anthony Brown. The guy's going to get burned sometimes. He just is. And we saw the good and bad with Diggs. It's mostly been great. And I still think, even given what happened, the fact is, Ed, you know all these stats, but it is funny to me that the first 6 games of the season, he now has an interception to start the season, all 6 games, and the only people who've done that, I think there are 3 other people who've done it in NFL history, and I love the fact that one of them is Tom Landry.
The first one is Tom Landry.
Yeah.
Tom Landry is the first one ever to do that. But yeah, talking to some of the New England coaches on the field before the game, they looked at the Cowboys defense as they felt like Gregory's a really disruptive player. They think Parsons is a unique player in third down situations. They think Diggs is an elite player with his ball skills. But what they looked at him overall, hey, Dan Quinn, he's changed a lot of things, but the one thing that's consistent with all the Pete Carroll descendants, and he's one of those, is they're always going for the ball. They're always trying to strip the ball. They're always trying to take the ball away. And obviously the Cowboys have had great success in that regard. But overall, they looked at a team that they're super fast and really athletic, but they're not great tacklers. And so what they wanted to try to do was get their guys the ball in space and create run after the catch, because they thought the Cowboys would perform poorly in that situation as far as tackling the guy after he made the catch. And I think we saw some of that, especially early in the game. The Patriots, their philosophy has always been, hey, everybody on defense spends their money on corners and pass rushers, so let's get rid of the ball quick and let's use tight ends and backs and attack the safeties and the linebackers. And so we're not trying to challenge the corners like everybody else is. We're not risking getting a sack because we're holding the ball, trying to get the ball down the field to a receiver. We're going to attack the middle of the field with our backs and our tight ends against your safeties and your linebackers, because nobody pays those positions like they pay the perimeter positions. And so I think some players got exposed, like you're saying with Van Der Esch. If there's a weakness, Josh McDaniels will certainly find it and go at it, and you'll see it. And so I thought that was interesting to get their perspective on how they view the Cowboys defense.
All right, Ed, it is that time. We do it on a weekly basis, and I think, he's known as one of the harshest graders in the NFL, and we've given him a little time this evening to kind of get familiar with the film, look back at a couple things, and eat a Campese salad. It is time for Glenn Stretch Smith with Stretch Marks. Stretch, this was a really important win, I think, for the Cowboys. It would have been tough to go into the bye. This would have left a mark for a lot of different reasons. This thing took a lot of twists and turns. Let's start, though, with an area I know you wanted to talk about. This wide receiver core had to step up because nobody has ever thrown for this many yards, by the way, against a Belichick team. In the history of Belichick, nobody ever put up 445 yards on him. And, of course, the tight ends, the running backs, the receivers. Ed, let's talk about the folks who are catching all those passes. What's your take on them?
Well, what I like about what this receiver core continues to do is they're very unselfish. I mean, they really are really good perimeter blockers. That's number one. They're not afraid to come inside when they get outnumbered down in the box. Obviously, the Cowboys don't have a true fullback. They'll line McGovern up in there at times. But you can go inside, cut off the backside and play and take what is a really tough working assignment and go get it done. And we're talking about Noah Brown, guys, really nobody had ever even heard of. I mean, he made one of the best catches today at yards after the catch to get up the field. Guys that are not intimidated, not afraid to get in the football game. Normally some of those down-the-line guys, I mean, you saw Aguilar today. He's not a down-the-line guy in New England, but he didn't want any part of that slant inside for fear that he was going to get lit up. You don't see that out of this Cowboys receiving core. And so I'm telling you, when you think about how unselfish they are and how they block the perimeter, yes, you want to see them make the big catches. Absolutely. You want to see them get yards after catch. Absolutely. You want to see them get off the line of scrimmage and get up the field. They do all of those things. But what I love is how they block and what they do after they catch the football. Very aware where the sticks are. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is a great football player, and he's getting better weekly. You got to remember, this is a group that's still missing Michael Gallup. I give this group an A, and they did a great job tonight. And what you saw tonight is what I think you're going to see for a while from the Cowboys receiving core.
Well, I like it. An A, I guess the only thing you could really knock them for, Stretch, is that the drop in the end zone, and that was a really nice play. Cedric Wilson had that ball, and then somebody reached in there and kind of scooped that thing out of his arms. But for the most part, that group played extremely well. All right, let's go to the line. I hesitate to do this because this could get your blood pressure up, but I had flashbacks that Connor Williams was having such a bad fourth quarter with the holds and everything that was going on with him that it was looking like he was almost going to single-handedly lose him that game. Now, Tyron had some. Even the great Zach had a penalty still. So across the board, the O-line was getting called for a ton of those penalties. I think they had 12 penalties in this game. Now, I know there were some good things, though, that happened from a pass protection standpoint. Where are you after tonight with that offensive line?
Well, it was a little frustrating to watch and continue to get those penalties. I'm going to tell you, the thing that when you start thinking about grading a Bill Belichick defensive front, those guys are stemming all over the place. They're going to stunt you into a lot of bad plays, and that's what they do. And so it's very hard to be critical when you're grading offensive linemen when those guys, again, are stunting and stemming into opposite. I'm going to say this, though. You cannot continue to have these holding penalties and the penalties that put your offense in a first and long, second and long situation. I mean, it's really frustrating with Connor. I can see it a little bit with Tyron because he's so tall, and at times when guys go to bend and try to get up underneath him, he will tend to get his hands up into their neck area, into their face area. I thought one of the holding calls on not on Zach but on Connor was really kind of a questionable call. The bottom line is New England can make you look bad from a defensive front. I don't care that you don't recognize any of the guys up front. I'm talking about schematically what they do and how they can get into different gaps. I did not think this offensive line played well as a group, and I'm talking about you have to be well coordinated from a run game standpoint. Here's what saved them is they did do a great job in pass protection because at the same time in the same sense that they're running from a run game standpoint, they also did pass game standpoint. They did a good job of pass protecting, but really I'm going to say a very average job by this offensive line tonight, and I'm going to give them a B- for being very average.
Okay, B-. And Stretch, if you would step to the other side of whatever room you're in right now, might help us just a little bit. We're getting some gremlins are getting involved, but you have such a powerful voice. You're overcoming it. By the way, I thought Connor, that was an unsportsmanlike penalty and a holding, and I don't know if we ever got a shot of that on the TV broadcast. Stretch, did you ever get a read on exactly what he did? Because obviously of those two penalties, they were going to take the one of the 15-yard variety. I don't think we ever got a look at that, did we?
No, I don't think they ever showed it. It was a reaction to what Kyle Van Noy had done when there was some traffic back in there, but I didn't get to see it. I think you could see the hold, but they did not show the unsportsmanlike after the whistle. Okay,
yeah, put him in a bad spot. Now, let's go to the quarterback. The bad we know was careless with the football. Ed earlier was trying to tell me, Stretch, that he thought maybe a little bit of the interception was the receiver's fault. I kind of wanted to see what you thought on that. And then, of course, trying to get that ball over the goal line, you got to watch that. Every once in a while it happens. Somebody will come in there and punch that thing out of there, and the guy made a great play on the ball. Then the good was 445 yards in a record-setting day. I mean, the guy is an incredible, and he's an MVP candidate. What was your overall thoughts on Dak?
Yeah, he'll make some great throws. The thing that gets frustrating for me is there's times when he really throws bad balls that should be easy throws, 5-yard outs, stick routes, some of those things, some of those drag routes to the back. It's frustrating at that point. I mean, if Ed said that he threw the ball, or the receiver ran the wrong route down there on those two posts, then to me, he should have thrown the ball outside because he had one-on-one to the outside. So I'm going to ding him there. The other thing is, when you got to know when you're playing a Bill Belichick team, you cannot go to reach the ball in short yardage situations. They're taught to punch the ball all the time. They've been doing that forever. So the fact that Dak reached that ball in that situation is very frustrating. I know he'll learn from that. But again, you see the throws that he makes. You see the way he leads the team. You see the way he's got real short-term memory loss. I'm going to give the quarterback the B, but he's got to protect the football better in those situations.
What do you, from all your years of scouting and coaching, and we both are good friends with some of the medical folks that have been with the Cowboys for over the years, what do you make when a guy has a calf strain? He's in a walking boot right now. Are you kind of like, he's probably going to be okay, or how concerned do you think our listeners should be about this particular injury?
Well, I mean, I think it's concerning, obviously, anytime they put you in a boot, but I think as much that's a precautionary thing. I think going into a bye week, hey, they went ahead and said, hey, we know we got a 4-hour flight home. Anytime you're going to get some swelling, about 32,000 feet, that thing could swell a little more. I'm sure that they're going to, ice that thing out to try to keep any kind of swelling out of there. But, I mean, I think there's a little concern there. And anytime you have to put that boot on, I mean, it's something that, it's going to keep everybody in the Metroplex talking for a while about what the scenario is with him.
Could you fly like a lower flight plane to perhaps keep. Okay, don't answer that. I'm sorry. I'm doing a comedy set here. All right, Stretch. Let's get over the defense though. Let's get serious, and let's start with the back end. Wasn't that something, Diggs? I mean, it's unbelievable. This guy's great, and there he was at a huge moment, making the play. And again, those are plays that for years were not made. And he not only, he's there, that ball goes off the hands of the other guy, gets it, goes for pick six. So in one way, he wins the game. And then, of course, he gets beat on that double move. Now, break that down for me, though. I want your grade, but I also want you to break that specific play. Do you put anything on that safety, Casey, back there for the angle he took?
Yeah, I put a lot of it on the safety. I mean, he's in a cut. You got to remember, the X was in a cut split. That's a single receiver side was in a cut split. So you got a lot of green grass outside of you. And yes, he got double moved there. But the point is, he's got inside help. And he gets double moved, knowing he's got inside help, and then Kazee takes a terrible angle. I mean, a terrible angle. That's the kind of stuff Jalen Smith used to do that would leave you just shaking your head, and it was a bad angle. I was a little frustrated with Jordan Lewis. He knows that he needs to play heavy inside leverage, yet he gets beat on the slam inside that he didn't connect on it one time. But those are things that have got to be cleaned up. The secondary, Diggs is a hell of a player, but they've got to get, and I know Wilson played through, he's going to come back from injury, but they've got to get this safety position locked up so that these corners have confidence in knowing, hey, if we are going to break on the ball, if we are going to continue to get these interceptions, if we are going to continue to try to get critical stops in these short yardage and short down situations to get off the field, they got to have the confidence in the guy behind them. I gave that group a B as well.
All right, B on the back end there with the secondary, and interesting to see Wilson back out there making some plays, number 6 in your program there. Linebacker. Van Der Esch, to me, some of the running plays, and then even in the passing game a little bit, looked either slow or just poor angles. He just caught my eye a few times. Now, there may have been some really good plays that I missed. What about the linebackers? I saw Neal in there a few times. What the linebackers, what did you make of their play? And, of course, Parsons being one of those guys.
Yeah, Neal's a good player. He's a good edge player. He's not going to come inside and play. He didn't have enough lead in his rear end to come in there and play those blocks. But, you point out that Van Der Esch does look a step slow, and I think he is a step slow. Now, is he nicked up? Is he banged up? Does he not have confidence? Is he trying to defensively where to go? I mean, there's times he looks very, very average. Micah Parsons, again, played a good football game. Just a very, what I would consider just almost a C, B grade, very average grade for the linebackers. Not a lot of production in that.
All right, not a ton of production there. Let's go to the defensive line. And Gregory continues to 2 sacks in this game, and just bull rushed one of their tackles, I believe it was. Yeah, just put it on him and went right back there, and it made the play. He's really, really showing up on a weekly basis and has become this team's maybe most consistent pass rusher. What did you make of that defensive line's performance?
Yeah, great. Dean Quinn does a great job of schematically getting his guys that particular week. Whether 2 weeks ago it was Parsons on the edge coming off, this week it was Gregory off the edge coming off in a single one-on-one situation, which means they got a guy over the guard. They're not necessarily able to turn that protection, so he knows, being Gregory, if I beat the guy in front of me, I'm going to get there. I like what the defensive line is doing. I think they play the run well. I think they do. Considering they're still missing Gallimore and Lawrence, which is 2/4 of the defensive line, I think this group played well enough to give you a winning grade. I'm going to give that group a B+ for a productive night.
All right, Cowboys win in overtime. Everybody goes to the bye week happy. And Ed, God, why do I keep calling you Ed? Maybe it's because I've been talking to Ed a lot. Stretch, take some time away. Take some time of reflection, spend some time in the film room. Maybe I'll join you in there. We'll put a few things on the board. But and man, just have a great time on TV tonight. We'll be watching that Joe Trahan and you. Love the chemistry. Love what you guys do. That's WFAA. That's every Sunday evening at about 10:30 is when that happens. And Stretch has been known to put on a nice sport coat with one of those kind of nice-looking, dressy undershirt type things. Maybe that's a bad way to explain it, but I appreciate it, Stretch.
Hey, thanks, and I feel really good tonight. You calling me Ed, so way to be a good haberdasher and get your name screwed up. See you later, Mosley.
I will do it, and I have been punished, and I think probably I would get more of a workman-like B tonight. Oh, there he is. He just hung up on us. Thanks a lot. Stretch with his famous stretch marks. All right, there it was, Ed, and I knew he would be a little tough on. He was even tough, Ed, on the. I know you've been up there doing all those interviews, so you didn't get to hear all of it, but I think even before the half, there were a couple things that he was not pleased with McCarthy on some clock management. I mean, there was one. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It was like 30 seconds left, and then there got Nance and Romo
it
even
was
got
on the field goal that they tied the game with and forced overtime. They left 20-some seconds on the clock for the Patriots.
Oh, yeah. No, I know that one, but I'm saying even earlier in the game, before at the end of the first half, there was a weird one where they could have waited and then forced them to punt, with 8 to 10 seconds left. But in defense of McCarthy, even Nance and Romo were confused on that one. They wanted him to take a timeout. And you know who's over there counseling him always is the great John Fossil. And he seems to be, I don't know who's in his ear about, when to do that, but he always seems to be a little bit befuddled by the whole situation. Now, we haven't mentioned it yet. You mentioned it actually briefly. Cowboys did block a punt. Now, they didn't take advantage of it, but it's extremely rare that it happens against the Patriots. Belichick, known for his special teams, and if Luke Gifford didn't come racing through the middle of that line and had a free, and then he not only blocked it, but then recovered it. So, Ed, that was a nice play with special teams, and that led the broadcast team to basically say, John Fossil, one of the greatest special teams coaches in the league. I feel like once you have a reputation, whether it's good, bad, or whatever, Fossil is the best known. I would say he's in the top 2 or 3 best known special teams coaches. Now,
following the fine tradition of Joe Avizano, the late Joe Avizano.
Correct.
Back in the 90s was kind of the same way. That did seem like a potentially huge play because it looked like it was going to give the Cowboys a chance for the lead at halftime, and getting the lead at halftime has always been huge against the Patriots because I think the stat is they were 102-2 here when Belichick's team had the lead. So the Cowboys defied the odds again in that situation as well. And you're right about Belichick and his painstaking detail on special teams. And you could argue he beat the Cowboys here with the special teams the last time because the only touchdown of the game was a result of them blocking a Cowboys punt and recovering on the 12-yard line and scoring the only touchdown. So that was a potentially significant play that the Cowboys failed to capitalize on. But I think this is the first time in his career Belichick's had 2 punts blocked in the same season. Since he became the Patriots coach. But his bigger problems were on defense, ultimately. Bill Belichick's. And I mean, what Dak Prescott did in this game, just really incredible. The Cowboys' 567 offensive yards was the most the Patriots have allowed in a game since 1986.
Yeah, Lee, that's like Raymond Berry was coaching them or something.
How about this? I know you love these stats. I'm gonna read you one more here. The last 4 times in the NFL, a quarterback's had 50 pass attempts, 400 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Dak Prescott today against the Patriots. Dak Prescott 2021 week 1 at the Bucs, So earlier this year against Brady's team, Dak Prescott 2020, week 4 against the Browns. Dak Prescott 2020, week 3 at the Seahawks. The last 4 times it's happened, it's been Dak every time. A guy that we thought was a bus driver, quarterback, when he was drafted in the 4th round in 2016.
Yeah.
Really remarkable what he's evolved into. It really is.
He's right now in the running for MVP. And both in the NBA and NFL, we consume ourselves with deciding who the MVP is, 6 games into the season. But I would say he's in the top 4 or 5 easily, and this only adds to that. Now, Ed, I know you're there in the press box, and at any minute they may give you the heave-ho. So I'll be quick with this, but I think it's very appropriate that we end this by, they go into the bye. It's a good time for the bye because Dak does have a calf strain, is what they talk about. Now, this team leads the world in MRIs, so they'll take a look at this thing and look at it. His comments were basically that, hey, I'm going to be fine. If I had to play, I would have been. I mean, the way he was moving, Ed, and you documented this, I don't know totally about that because he was, and I know adrenaline plays a huge role in those games, but he was not moving real well. So this does, he joked that, hey, I wanted to give you guys something to talk about in this week off. Well, he has, because this becomes kind of the monstrous story. How significant is this injury? Because, Ed, I don't think we're breaking any news to say the Cowboys, last year, at least they had Andy Dalton, who had experience. This year, they really don't have anybody behind Dak Prescott, and this is the only thing right now that could slow this team down. If they are compromised at quarterback, you expect him to be okay, but, Ed, this is something we got to watch because he was in that air cast, he was not looking good after this game.
I think it was just more of a walking boot, but if they have to go to Cooper Rush for any length of time, I think there would obviously be a lot of alarm given the stats I just cited. I think tell you how important a player Dak Prescott is to this football team. In addition to all the leadership he provides, he's a captain again today, and for the second week in a row, he broke them down before they took the field. The role that Jalen Smith used to have before they sent him off to Green Bay with $17 million. But what you didn't see today that I did was I watched Will Grier. You forget he's on the roster. Will Grier, who they signed to be a third quarterback, just had an exceptional session with Doug Nussmeier, the quarterback's coach, before the game. He did a throwing session out here, guys running routes for him. He looked outstanding. So maybe he would provide some level of competition for Cooper Rush if Dak's unable to go. I'm being sarcastic with most of that, of course.
No, we certainly picked up on that, Ed. I watched the young man at West Virginia. Pretty good arm, but if you have to get him in a ball game, I wouldn't like the Cowboys' chances. You also documented pregame. You really had your eye all over the place. That discerning eye of yours. Zeke kicked the pylon. Of course, the pylon camera, he fell on that. It really left a bruised back, or it kind of banged him up, and so he gave that thing a kick. And now, Ed, did somebody come up to you and ask, like, hey, was that Zeke who kicked the pylon or damaged the pylon? Because I think you had a picture of even the little the base of the pylon there, and they had to kind of connect that back together and everything.
Yeah, it was disconnected from the ground, and so the TV cable was briefly broken. And the stadium worker who's in charge of that came over to me and he said, "Hey, what happened to my pylon? Who did that?" And I said, "I'm not really sure." And then Zeke made it clear to him that he did it. And then Zeke said that was not the last time today he was going to move a pylon or put a pylon in some kind of physical jeopardy. So don't be surprised if he displaces another one. But I don't think he ever scored, so he didn't have a chance to do it in the end zone this time.
No, they didn't.
But yeah, I had quite a day on Twitter between capturing that moment before the game started and then Dak limping to the locker room after the game. I was outstanding with the iPhone camera today.
Yeah, I think even Stretch would give you an A, and I really do like how you've gotten, but even your headset tonight has worked out beautifully. You sound good, and we always appreciate it when you pack your headset for this trip. That was good. By the way, who told you? There's one thing I wanted to follow up on. Who told you to delete? They said, if I were you, I would delete that. Was it like a security?
That would be a good one to delete. Yeah, it was a security person.
Just at the stadium. It wasn't like Cowboys security. It was like
I think it might have been team security.
Ooh. Okay. And did you kind of bow up to them?
So now all of a sudden you're like, it's kind of not my job to do what the team tells me to do.
Yeah,
and
I know.
If I witness news, I should report it. So my immediate reaction was, I'm going to go ahead and put this on Twitter. I'm going to post what I saw, but I won't post a picture. I'll hold off on that because I thought I might need it to leverage them to give me more information about the severity of Dak's injury, especially once I was in the press conference and they started by saying they didn't have an official injury report, which meant McCarthy wasn't going to have to address it. They spared him that, and I don't know if they did it in a calculating manner or they really didn't know at the time. But McCarthy did not have to answer any questions about Dak's injury because he claimed not to know the injury report. And I didn't have to leverage him because right after he left the room, the Cowboys announced that he had a calf strain. And then Dak came in and took questions in a walking boot. So we'll see where it all goes. I think it's no sure thing that even if it's a calf strain, that he's back 14 days from now against Mike Zimmer.
Yeah. I just can't even believe somebody had the gall to tell you to delete something. But I'm proud of you because it sounds like you didn't have like a Werder reaction to that. You kind of just played it cool and did your thing, and you were going to make a decision. So kudos to you for that. Because
you expected a more emotional, visceral reaction from me?
We both have a little angry streak, and I'm just saying I may have, yeah. And we've seen how you react to some things, mainly to me.
If you'd have told me to do something, I would have done the opposite for sure.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Okay, Ed. Closing thoughts. We'll go to the bye and see what the Cowboys are going to do. This has a chance, Ed, to be one of our highest grossing. Well, I don't know if grossing, or I don't know if we're going to make any money off of it, but we're going to get a whole lot of downloads over this. So we need to kind of wrap this up and move along. Any closing thoughts, Ed, as you get ready to depart the press box there in Foxborough?
Well, the Cowboys have won 5 straight games since losing on opening night against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, defending world champs. The 5-game winning streak is their longest winning streak since they won 11 straight games with Dak and Zeke, the rookie seasons in 2016. So I think they feel really good about the momentum they've created. And I think everything now will be determined by that MRI tomorrow and Dak's availability 2 weeks from tonight to play in Minnesota.
All right. They did it. And they overcame a lot of adversity, mostly caused by their head coach and one of their guards, starting guards.
And their carelessness with the ball.
True. But that quarterback seemed like he more than made up for that with his performance this evening. That is the Doomsday Podcast. For Ed Werder, I am Matt Mosley. And for Mark Frito Friedman, Chris Gross, Frito Nation Productions, we bid you good night.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries plus napkins plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.